Alright, so here I am mixing up some more thickened epoxy with cellophil because it's going to be a bonding epoxy to bond these two cypress runners that go along 14 inches from the center line on the bottom of the boat here. And you can see about the consistency of this epoxy glue. And I go ahead and spread it on both, a little bit on the boat and a little bit on this runner, and brush it to make sure the coverage is pretty good on the runner. Then I'm just going to flip it over, make sure it's on the line that I've drawn along here, and put these weights in place to hold it in place until it cures. It's as simple as that. And here's side number 2. Now, Chesapeake Lightcraft recommended using drywall screws that went into the boat, and I chose not to do that. This thing did want to move a little bit with these weights, but it was easy to keep it in place. And offline tomorrow, I will trim off these ends and make them pointy on the front and the back. You can see a little bit long here. And here we are the next day. A little bit of thickened epoxy that's going on these runners and the center line so that the fiberglass conforms, because there's a tight corner there. So I'm only doing these last kind of 4 inches, and the fiberglass that's going to go on the transom laps over onto the bottom of the boat here for about those 4 inches, and a little bit up the sides as well. So this first round is just putting on this thickened epoxy. Once I'm done with that, go ahead and make up some unthickened epoxy and put the fiberglass in place. Okay, so here we are back to real time, and I had to keep the garage door closed because it was sunny outside. It was probably 80 degrees outside, and that sun would just cook off the epoxy way too quick if it was shining on the transom here. So just going to go ahead and paint on with this brush the bottom of the boat where the fiberglass is going to lay, and once I do that, I'm going to drape the fiberglass in there and then try and get that whole transom wetted out with the fiberglass. I'll speed it up here in a second. As you may imagine, this can be a tedious process to get the fiberglass to lay flat, because you got to lay it flat with all these little ridges in the bottom, and then it's got to be flat over the entire transom and then bend also on the side. So kind of had to clip the fiberglass a little bit there on the sides and get some of the excess off the bottom, and you'll see that coming up here. So it's all wetted out with the unthickened epoxy, and it's made the fiberglass turn clear. You can see a couple of what looks like white spots, and that's because there's a filler epoxy underneath. The edges are going to get painted. I'm going to try and leave the transom a wooden color, and there's just a little bit of glare of light, but it is clear. And once I put another layer of epoxy and then several layers of varnish, it will look just like mahogany okumi plywood. And there's a lot more hull that needs to get covered with fiberglass and epoxy, but that's a job for another day.